Happy holidays, comrades! Welcome to my presentation about ADHD. For my presentation, I have decided to do a board game. I really love board games. I grew up in a family that played board games all the time, so a board game felt like the right option to me. It is called ADHD Through the Ages. You start off at the start square and move around down through the spiral to the very end. The first person to reach the end is the winner. There are 8 game pieces, so 8 people will be able to play. However, if you would like to play with more people, you can always find other things around the house to use as game pieces. I decided to make the board game a spiral because a lot of times your thoughts can feel like a spiral, or like you're spiraling out of control. So I kind of wanted to represent that through the shape of the game board. Now, how to play. To play, you start off at the start square and roll the dice, and move however many spaces the dice says. You then draw a card coordinating to the color space you land on. If you land in a bluish space, the Stone Age. If you land in a green space, the Middle Ages, and if you land in a pink space, you draw from the Modern Age. The cards will have different prompts and tell you what to do afterward. There are 20 cards per each era. 10 of them are move forward, 8 of them are move backwards, 1 of them is lose a turn, and 1 of them is get out of moving backwards or losing a turn. This card can be used in any era, not just the era you draw it for. When you're done with the card, you put it back in the bottom of the deck. One of the cards says, you unconsciously repeat an interesting sound you hear, and it repeats back, closer. You just attracted tonight's dinner. Move forward 2. This is an example of echoloquia, which is something that people with ADHD experience sometimes. An example that would occur in the modern age would be driving in a car or being a passenger in a car and seeing a billboard on the side of the road and reading it out loud without actually thinking to yourself to read it out loud, where you don't realize you're reading it until you hear your voice spilling out what the billboard says. It can happen with things you read or things you hear that you just kind of subconsciously repeat back out loud. This is not unique to ADHD. People with autism also experience this. One of the main characteristics of ADHD is the attention deficit. People with ADHD can get bored pretty easily. One of the ways that this could be advantageous would be going exploring in new places and finding new things that could help your community and aid the survival of the human race, which could lead to it being passed down for future generations. This is incorporated in one of the Stone Age cards that I have done. To fill your boredom, you went exploring and found in the den of the fox who's been harassing your people. Move forward 1. But once you reach the end of the blue section, you'll find a red space. There is a red space between each of the different eras. Once you hit the red space, you stop. You don't go any further. Your turn is over. You do not pass the red space if your role dictates that you move further than the red space. This is the stop between eras. This also applies to if a card tells you to move backwards. If, say, you have this card from the modern era that says, you have an assignment due soon, but instead of doing it, you sit on your phone stressing about it the entire time, an example of executive dysfunction, and you have to move backward 4, but you're only 3 spaces ahead of the red space, you would still stop on the red space just because your executive dysfunction wouldn't quite shoot you backward all the way into the Middle Ages. Basically what I'm saying is that once you reach an era, you stay in it. You cannot move backwards past the red spaces. Once you hit a red space, whether it's on your roll or the numbers moving forward or backward from your card, your turn ends. You are then free to move on to the next era, the era in front of the red space. Some of the other cards that we have here for the Middle Ages, as I haven't really talked about them. There isn't a whole lot of research out there about how ADHD affected people in the Middle Ages, so I had to take some of the things we know about it now and incorporate it to how it might have affected people in that time period. For example, you impulsively interrupt a priest when he was speaking to you, an offense which was not treated kindly. Move backward 3. People with ADHD are often known to saying things impulsively or oftentimes kind of known for interrupting people, especially as kids. That is how I incorporated that into that card. Another example, you've been given a task that requires you to travel a longer distance and remain in motion. This helps your brain function, and you get the task done and an idea for a new fabric design. Move forward 3. People with ADHD, their brains work better when they are moving. This is a lot of times why they fidget with things, is that it helps kind of keep them in motion. They don't sit still very often and very well. Helps them to be in motion, to be moving, whether that's through fidgeting, bouncing their leg, just pacing around the room, or going somewhere. Another example, you and your friends agree to play a round of marbles in between parts of your chores, which is a surprisingly efficient method of getting them done. Move forward 2. This is something that is known as the Pomodoro method, where you do something that you need to do and do something you want to do intermittently. For example, folding 5 pieces of laundry and going back to read a paragraph of a book you're really interested in. This has been proven to help people with ADHD get some things done and kind of focus on the task they need to do, because it still allows their brain to do what it does a lot and bounce back between tasks. The last one that I'll read off. Your friend comes over when you need to do chores. Thanks to body doubling, you're able to get your chores done. Body doubling is when you're able to get something done because another person is there. They don't necessarily have to be helping you with your chores or your task, but just having someone in the room is able to a lot of times help. I don't really know why this works, but it's been one of the things that I've heard about a lot, and that's come up a lot in looking into it. That a lot of times people with ADHD are able to get things done just when another person is just there, in the room with them. I hope that through this board game, people who play will be able to learn more about ADHD and can kind of have some fun going through and dealing with the chance of not knowing whether you're going to move forward or backward even after your dice roll. A lot of times, certain symptoms of ADHD do feel like a lot of times they're up to chance. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when the day is going to come that you're going to feel like you can't get anything done and everything is just, understimulation. Days when everything is too loud and things are just happening too much and people are moving and things are going and everything is just happening at once. Overstimulation. Depression is also very common with people with ADHD, and so sometimes you're just hit with days where you don't really want to get out of bed or do anything and everything's just blah. Some days, you want to do everything at once and you have so many things to do. And so you're trying to do everything at once and bouncing back between a series of tasks and, oh wait, it's been 2 hours and I've been started tasks and I haven't finished even one of them yet. Sometimes it can be a lot, but sometimes it can be helpful. This board game allows people to experience a small taste of what it would be like to have ADHD in 3 different time periods across history, while still being able to have fun with the rest of the family or whoever's playing. Thank you for listening to my presentation.